Welcome everybody to our webinar series. We have this webinar every Wednesday night at 6 p.m. We are really happy to talk about this topic tonight. It's about doing due diligence, and we think it's a very timely topic as the amount of deal flows are going to start to pick up in the market, in growth markets, because the last few years have been very full of headwinds. And now that seems to start to be shaking out, meaning a lot of deals that traded at very high valuations are now being repriced. Some are seeing up to 30, 40, 50% off. A lot of deals are starting to pencil out now. And I think it's important time more than ever to make sure we're asking the right questions when we get presented these opportunities. That's what tonight's talk is going to be about, due diligence. We'll get into it in a second. I just want to introduce myself and bio as the co-host, a orthopedic surgeon from Houston, Texas. I have certifications. I've been investing since 2016. I've gone on to invest in about 25 deals and 3 as a co-GP, so 25 as an LP. So I love to bring that experience to these webinars and give anecdotal nuggets from just that time frame and that timeline of investing. I've gone on to start my own syndication company, Time Health Capital. I'm focused on real assets, mostly multifamily, but where I invest across agriculture, invest in mineral rights, which is a kind of an energy sector, oil and gas type of investment, medical office building as well. Total of about $50 million worth of assets under management and about 500 doors totals. I'll let Bio introduce himself. He's your co-host with me tonight. He's the CEO of Dr. Breathe Easy Capital. So off to you, Bio.
Yeah, welcome everyone. Thanks, George. So I'm Dr. Fasanya. I'm a pulmonary critical care physician. Just recently started my private practice, which I'm proud of. I'm also the CEO of Dr. Breathe Easy Capital. We also deal with real assets. We believe in diversification. We just don't be like, oh, we're going to only do multifamily. We do self-storages. We have 3 offices, but multifamily is the core. So we have about 1,035 units right now, over about 140 mil under management currently. This is a mixture of collaboration and also I operate, which means we do deals of our own also. I also have some properties of my own, which is just no syndication, just personal properties. And we do oil and gas. We believe in W2 tax benefits that it provides, and also the diversification. We also buy businesses. We try to be vertically integrated, either in medicine or real estate. So part of it includes a DME company. We have a sign company, electrical company, end of last year, and also owning company. So between me and our business analyst, Richard, is not here today. I'd like to also bring this experience. I don't only operate, I also started investing since residency over 10 years ago as a limited partner with my moonlighting money. Okay. And then, had great experience. It was such a great time to invest. Of course, now there are some trouble in the market, but it's always great to have seen the cycle, right? Where, you just bring in the money and you're 100% you're doubling your money in 3 to 5 years, to seeing some capital calls, to seeing deal that doesn't go right. And we like to bring this experience out so that everyone's going to make some mistake, but at least to decrease how many mistakes other people make. Yeah, I'm excited about this one.
Awesome. So yeah, like I said, we'll talk about some of the due diligence questions that we think are important. But first, we want to frame the whole topic. And I always like to tell students that you want to look at several things when you do your due diligence and categorize them. And that way you can keep them in order. We even have a document that we refine and we'll share with everyone on this call by email about some of these due diligence questions. But start to compartmentalize it and organize it in your mind. You need to ask questions in general about the general partnership team. You need to ask questions about the deal itself. Then you need to ask questions about the market, what's going on in that area, location, right? It's become very clear that you need to ask questions about the debt And this could fall under the deal structure itself, but specifically you want to ask certain sets of questions about the debt structure. And you want to ask questions about the underwriting. And then there's several miscellaneous questions that can be very important too. We think that the most important of that list is the general partnership. Who is the person and who are the team members that are responsible for carrying out the business plan? We think all of those other things can be checked on a checklist. You can have a good marketing. You can have good underwriting and good dynamics of the deal and the debt structure and everything. Great terms, great financing. But if the general partnership team is either just not competent, not experienced enough, or just not have integrity, this could, ruin a deal. You can take a good deal and run it into the ground if the GP team is not the right person for the job, the right people for the job. So we're going to actually lean into that topic today because there's several questions, more than several questions to ask alone just for the GP partnership team. And so I was going to talk about the different categories of questions you can ask the GP.
It's like the engine, right? So you want to be sure it's it doesn't matter what it looks like on the outside. I always tell people 3x of zero is zero. So if you have a bad thing, it doesn't matter whether the deal is the best deal in the world. And I've had this thing, people saying, nobody can mess this deal up. The deal is so good that you can't even mess it up. That's a lie. You can't mess it up, even if you have the greatest deal. We just talked about a deal. George said the deal was doing well 3 years in, and then they made some adjustment that then killed the deal. So then the return after 5 years was basically far less. Whereas it could have been, if they had just continued the course, they would have done better. Things like that can happen by just switching the team, part of member of your team around. So one, you want to know about the experience and competence. That is number one, right? Experience is different, right? You want to know the experience, and people can tell you different kind of experience. Everybody always have combined experience of 200 years, I always laugh at that when you look at the team. So, but experience in what? So we're going to go over that. Competence also is different. You want to be sure that you can be experienced, right? You can be a doctor for 20 years and be a bad doctor. So it's possible. And so next is the team. Actually, what is the team structure? We're going to talk about who is the member of the team and what each one of them doing, and basically getting to know, each team member. And that is the goal, integrity, and track record. Track record also linked towards the competency. However, you want to look into the integrity more. And I know it's one of the number one for us, especially George, even with test people with information you already know. It's almost couple testing each other with questions. And then if they lie about it, that's it. So you want to test. This is your hard-earned money. And you don't have unlimited resources. So if you're going to put the money into something, make sure at least for a minimum they have good integrity.
Yeah, and it's like a relationship. It is a relationship that you're getting into with these GPs, these operators, these syndicators. Same level of effort that you put into any other relationship, you want to put into this as well. We're going to go question by question here, just so you guys can actually have the questions to ask. So starting with experience and competence, I always want to know if that operator has done a project in the specific submarket before. Not just the city, not just the state, but real estate is really neighborhood to neighborhood. It can change. Houston's a great example of that. One street, one railroad track can just completely change the market dynamics of that potential deal. So I ask, have you done other projects in this submarket? What's their boots on the ground? Do they actually have physical presence in there? Do they understand the cap rates, the going cap rates for that market? Do they know when a deal is really on sale, if it's really discounted, or if it's trading at the market level? And so having this kind of intimate knowledge, I think, is super important. They at least need to have one member of the team who has that intimate knowledge, and preferably lives in that city so that they can really drive that market on a regular basis. And then how much experience do you have with a specific asset class? So I think it's important that when you're a GP, that you're very laser focused. You're not investing in 10 different broad asset classes. You're in energy, or you're in oil and gas, you're in VC startups or tech, or you're doing small business. Like when I invest with a GP, I think they should be laser focused on an asset class. That way I know they really have market expertise in that asset class. And you can get very granular. It's not just multifamily residential apartment buildings. You can ask, do they invest specifically in value add acquisitions, meaning they acquire a property that's already built? Or are they investing in developments? Are they part of the development team? Is it a specific type of vintage, meaning were they all built before 2000 and you like that heavier value add? Or do you like newer products, class A, that were just built in the last 10 to 15 years? So you can get really granular. And the more specialized, just like a lot of medical doctors here, the more specialized they are, I think the more attractive they are as a GP, because that means they're really laser focused and expertise in that asset class.
Yep, I agree. You have to at least have a member, of the team that, and when we talk about all these questions, one question does not exactly disqualify, the GP, but the more of this that they fail, it's just like doing like a test. The more likely you'll be like, you know what, I'm not going to risk my money with these operators. So I mean, there's multiple teams, right? You could. It's easy for syndicators to do. If you know that you don't have experience, like we don't have experience in short-term rental, for example, if we're going to do short-term rentals, we are better find a team that specializes in short-term rental, right? To join us so that we have the experience and the expertise. So I'm going to go over, have you ever been a passive investor? It's important to ask this question because there are some people that just jump into being a general partner. So I don't believe it's the right way to do it, because there's many people that reach out to us because we are coaching, now, and they just be like, have you ever invested before, or they're like, no, but I want to do what you do. I'm like, start with the limited partner course and, do some deals, see how it goes, and then you'll be able to tell people how it feels to be a limited partner. As a limited partner. So, for example, communication. Hello? I think it's, hello?
You froze a little, but you're back now.
Yep. I need to get more extenders. So, for example, in the communication, we're just talking recently. You like to be communicated with twice a month? You say once a month. There are some that would not communicate for 3 months. So those are the things that you want them to know how it feels. I think it's important. Right. Yeah.
Yeah, super important. I think I've even experienced it with I've invested in 25 of these, right? I've experienced like operators who communicate very well, on time, full information. And then I've experienced the opposite, where you just don't hear anything. And I honestly believe if you're never a passive investor before, you don't appreciate that nuance of how important that is. That really instills trust and familiarity with the operator. So then I think we need to ask, is that operator full-time? And if not, what were they doing before? I think this is a really important question. So I think being a lead operator like this is a full-time job. It's not a side gig or a side hustle. There's so many moving parts as you're the project manager and the asset manager, that I want to at least know that you're doing it full-time. And if not, like, how do you mitigate that? What does the rest of the team look like? Do you have another 9 to 5 that takes up a lot of your time? And if you're not doing this full-time, or excuse me, if you are doing this full-time, but you came from another sector, what were you doing before? Is this completely different from what you were doing before? Or does it have some relation? Do you have a background in some finance or investment banking, or some other type of investments, just to get a broad picture, a full picture of who they are and where they're coming from? It also leads to some further questions as to why they're doing this if they did make a jump and a pivot from another field, right? So I think those two questions are really important. It tells me about their competence, their experience, their ability to devote enough bandwidth to running this operation and this business.
Yeah. I mean, you'll be surprised. And not just only that, too, in terms of like with non operators that, every year you see that their team is only like maybe 3 people, and yet they have deals every single month or every other month. And we talk about it all the time. There's some group on our watch list that we're watching because I'm like, how is it possible to run this $20,000 with this small team? So you just common sense, I'll say, in general, to say, okay, is there a member of the team that's at least boot on the ground that is stable? That if something goes wrong, they have the time. And then I'm going to talk about in a coaching program or mentorship program. So we believe in this a lot. I use a different strategy to get into real estate syndication, and George used a different strategy, which both of them is good. So for me, I went one-on-one coaching with a mentor who, as I was doing my own deals on the side, learning, I was also raising money and also learning the ropes, so to say. And then for about 2 years, that was what I was just doing. And you want to make sure that they at least also have someone, because right now that I do my own deals, it's even more of a resource than it was when I was in the mentorship program. Because now I text him questions still. Hey, this had just happened. We have 2 units burned down, one of our properties, and he's dealt with something like that. And I'm like, man, so how does this affect the deal? And they just reassure me. So you want to make sure that they have at least someone to go to. And the judge can talk about your own experience about.
Yeah, I went through a mentorship. I went through a coaching, like a mentorship, and that's important. That's another way to do it. But I think the real key thing is, what kind of training did the GP get? Either one is fine, whether they had a mentor, whether they had a coaching group. It's just, I want to know who those folks were. Not only that they had some kind of teaching or training or coaching, but now that's another source for me to go and vet. Like, were they taught by a well-known mentor? Were they taught by a well-known group, respected group? You can do your due diligence on that layer. So that's why I think this is an important question to ask. It's more substance for you to go after. So either one is fine. Just dig into that layer as well. So now we want to switch. That's getting an idea and sense of experience and competence of the operator. Now we want to know who else is on the team, because usually it's not a one-man show. I'd be very weary if one person was doing this with a bunch of VAs or something. You want to know who else is on the team. So let's go through some of the team members. I always ask, who is the property management company? Are you self-managing this thing, or do you have third-party property management company working on this? And I think this is maybe from what I understand and what I've experienced, this is like the make or break of the team. It's who's managing the property. Do they have experience with real estate syndications? Do they understand that there's investors that are involved? Do they understand the market and what kind of rental rates they can achieve? So you can't just have a random property manager. Is it someone who's capable of actually carrying out the business plan? I like to know if they're involved early. Are they involved in the due diligence of the deal, not just the deal has been closed and money has been raised, and now we're trying to find a property manager to retrofit to this project? It's better if they're involved from the beginning, because they're crucial. This can also make or break a deal, a good deal. Definitely property manager. I want to know that team member, who they are and their track record.
Yep. So I'm going to piggyback on that a little bit about property manager, right? They know the area. There's oftentimes I call property managers, and before I even go further into the property, they're like, oh, I've walked that property like 3 times already. So property managers are so essential. They're like, oh, they've been trying to sell that property for they take it off the market. They tell you all the story, like, oh, it has mold. The property managers that are like local are the best, that knows, and I like the appropriate one for the asset class also. Because so if you have a property manager that manages like 50 units and down below, and now you're trying to get them to manage the 400 units, that's a recipe for failure. And also, if you have a team that is so large that they're just too stretched thin, they're all over the country, I personally will not use that for this medium-sized asset. So if it's large asset, there's no other choice than to pick one of the bigger brands, right? But if it's like more like 70 units, 50 units, I would prefer somebody local, to be honest, or somebody close by. Usually, this will be in a tertiary market, oftentimes, or not the primary market. So yeah, you need to know the property manager, ask questions, and how many deals have they managed? Like I said, like this, right? So oftentimes, they talk about which deal they've done, how they've taken it from, and I actually call. So if I'm investing, sometimes I would actually try to do all this pretend call, just call the property manager, try to ask them questions if I want to use them for my property. I try to get some details and fill them out myself. And the other thing is, have you worked with this property manager before? So this is I'm more comfortable with property managers that you've been using for operations before, but because the more new things that happens with its indication, the more likely something's going to go wrong, right? So you want it to be as lean as possible. My perfect deal, personally, to invest in is always in a deal that we're not going to do too many changes or innovation, a little bit of light value add. We already have these contractors we're using. We just use them. They've done this. Property manager is managing all of our other assets, and they're just going to add this to the portfolio. So the less changes, and the more they say we're going to do this new thing, the more spike my anxiety goes up, because that's more risk. So that's about property manager.
I liken it to, I do surgery, and I know when I do surgeries with the same team over and over again, very smooth. And then when you just have new team members, you start introducing these new variables, doing different factors, then it starts to get a little bit more friction. So that familiarity is huge. They know how to run the business plan that the GP lays out. They're very familiar and comfortable with it. It just runs much smoother, and the goals get achieved. Other team members, you can generally ask in general, who is on the team? Who is your support? Is it just you're all under one umbrella? Is it all one entity, or do you bring together other groups of people? You want to know what their responsibilities are. We have another webinar that we talk about the roles of these general partnership teams. Somebody can be the deal acquisitions person, so they're the person responsible for finding the opportunities. There could be somebody who underwrites the deal, somebody who talks to the lenders and the legal and sets up all that infrastructure to get the deals actually off the ground. There can be someone who is the overall asset manager, who's managing everything, all the moving parts, including the property managers. There's folks who are just key principals. They're coming with their balance sheet and being loan guarantors on the deal. There's folks who are just important for investor relations or capital raising, even though everybody's really a capital raiser on that GP team. But you want to know a couple of things. You want to know not only who they are, so you can actually do some due diligence on them as well. The most important is the lead sponsor by far. There's usually one or two lead sponsors, but you still want to know not only the integrity, the competence, the experience of the other team members, but you want to know how long they've been working together as a team as well. Because a lot of times, especially over the last few years, you just see this conglomeration of a bunch of different random general partners just working together on a whim, doing one-off deals. That goes back to the point I just made about just familiarity. It's better. I always feel more confident when I see a team that's worked together. And it doesn't necessarily have to be like they're part of the same entity, but at least they've worked together for, many years and gone through up cycles and down cycles. So they know how to work with each other and get through tough times if there's going to be tough times with this deal. So I like to know that, not only who they are, what they do, but how long they've actually really worked together.
So we have a question. I'm actually going to answer it. So Natasha asked, once you have answers to these questions about the team members and their respective level of expertise, how far do you go in your own diligence to verify or fact check those responses? Do you hire out for this or do it yourself? So I can start, but then George will pitch in. So
Sure.
I do it myself mostly. However, you can hire out. There are companies out there. And actually, George is responsible for the areas the company uses. So there's a lot of easy information online. If I ask you, do you have criminal record? And you say no, and I do a background check and I find the criminal record, that's integrity is gone. I'm like, just say it, just like a job interview. So just tell me the truth and I'll make my decision. You can find this by finding people that have invested with them before. Oftentimes, like for us, we have a WhatsApp group. You can just talk to somebody else in the WhatsApp group and ask, or you can find people in the. I stalk people's LinkedIn sometimes. I look through people that always commenting on their posts all the time, and like, have you worked with this person before? And I try to get like 10 of those, and then just ask questions. So most of the time, we try to do it ourselves. If something is very borderline, then we hire it out. If you're really like, man, I don't know, man, this guy's highs is always shifting every time we answer these questions. So just use your social intelligence also. So that's what I say.
Yeah, you can definitely pay for different platforms. Some platforms put it all in one where you hire them to do all the searches. The individual searches that I'm aware of and that I'll use is the National Criminal Search, the Federal Criminal Search, a County Criminal Search, a Sex Offender Search, a Social Security Number Trace, and a Global Watch List search. This is a list that I found from they're like a syndication fund of funds type of platform that is also responsible for doing due diligence. And so this is the list that they use. I thought it was a very good list. And I think it's worth it. Some of it may cost some money, but you want to know, like I said, you're getting into a relationship. And so at Time Health Capital, we're going to pay the money to go through this. And to the extent you can do this for every member of the team, it may get costly. Obviously, the most important is to do it for the lead sponsor and anyone else you think is really important to the identity, the culture of that GP team. But yeah, if you get a big GP team with 20 operators on it, you have to decide if you're going to want to do a background check on all of them, or you figure out who's the real players, who's the real decision makers of that team, and then go in on them. I'll share a list. My VA found like 3 or 4 companies that does this. Don't have it on me right now, but once I find it, I'm going to share that as well as our 101 questions list with everyone on the call tonight. We'll send it in an email.
Yep. Yeah.
But that's a great question.
Yeah, great question. You could lose hundreds of thousands of dollars. So I'll say it's what the investment, at least on the lead operator. And because of this, I know it's probably not the right thing to do sometimes. We've passed on deals when there's too many people on the deal also, right? Because we can't just do enough due diligence, right? The other deal we found that was like 9 people raising money for this same deal, which is like a smaller deal too, you know. So we're just like, there's too many cooks, and you could just we just every time we try to do due diligence on one team, then that team also have another 5 team members. So you're like, you know what? We just pass.
But really good question. It actually ties in to one of the other later questions. I think one way you can validate the answers and the responses is by growing your network within the space, meaning get out there and get to events, go on webinars. Because the bigger your network, the bigger you'll be able to check with other folks who are in the ecosystem, other LPs, limited partners, other vendors, other GPs. The bigger your database of people in the space, the more information you can gather and find out if there's anything suspicious about who you're potentially going to work with. So get out there and network and be social.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
actually not circle than you think.
Yep.
So
okay, so the next one is related to how the deal is structured and the team members. You want to know if something happens health-wise to that lead operator, that main decision maker, what's going to happen? Is there a contingency plan for someone else within that GP team to step in, take over the roles, and manage the asset? That's very important. It still leads into all the other questions about who the other team members are, but you specifically want to know that situation. It's not a pleasant one to think about, but look, you have to have a contingency plan or some kind of idea of what would happen if that lead operator is incapacitated, loss of health, loss of life. Those questions need to be asked, and they need to actually be in the legal documents about that succession plan.
Yeah. The one of my first indication, like my probably the second investor I talked to was like, what happens if you get hit by a bus? Direct, straight. I was just like, so at that time it was just me and my wife and another operator. So I thought about it myself, and I had to actually go and make a better plan and form better partnership. That okay, if something happens to me, George can can continue, right? Or if if something happens to me, Josh, our acquisition guy slash asset manager can also continue. So you basically have to have multiple of those, to be like, that's a legitimate question. Be afraid to ask this question. Don't be coy about it.
Yeah, there's ways you can deliver it such that it doesn't feel awkward, rude,
Like
or
that one.
intrusive. Yeah.
But I didn't feel upset. I just felt it was a little bit, I pray not. And with your security attorney, which is also important, there's usually few of them that, almost every syndicators have used, and everybody keeps switching back and forth. And if you know enough about security attorneys, you might know which ones are good, which ones are bad, or you can look them up, because you're just as good as who's your attorney. And you can play with almost every other organization like IRS and things like that and negotiate. But once you mess up with SEC, it's like jail time. There's no, there's literally no negotiation whatsoever with SEC. So you want to be sure that they got out there, just at least to know that they have a security attorney. They just don't find some paper. I've had some smaller syndicators that we just find some documents online and try to do DIY. No, you want to make sure they have an attorney for sure for securities.
Yeah. And this kind of starts the list of this extended team. We initially talked about the internal team, like the GP team, the general partnership, who they're working with directly. But then there's these vendors that are also part of the team, that they're very important. You want to know if, number one, if the lead operator is thinking about those things and make sure they're finding good quality extended team members. So we're talking about their lender, any third-party asset manager. You can actually bring that in. A lot of times that's in-house, that's within the GP team, it's internal. But sometimes you can hire that out. You can hire out an asset manager. So their accountants who's preparing their taxes. So you want to know that at least that these are reputable firms with a good track record within the ecosystem. That's part of the extended team. They're not direct employees or anything like that. They don't have shares in the deal. They're just hired third parties, extended team.
Sure. And then now just the goals, integrity, and track record. And feel free to ask any questions, because as we go about this, it's important. We ask these questions, open-ended questions, just to get an idea of who they are, where they're coming from, and what's their goal. So let me understand. For example, we have another syndicator in Tampa, who's our colleague, whose main thing is all about this environmental friendly. So it's paint, it's stud. Every single thing about this property is about providing a fresh breathing. And sometimes it could be, depending on how you look at it, you can look at it as This person is not going to, my aim is very nice and very ethical. That's one part. And the other part is this guy is not going to compromise, basically focus on profit, which is exactly what I need in this indication at the end of the day. It just depends on who you are. So it's not that it's wrong, but just if it doesn't match with your own philosophy and principle, right? If your principle is let's get into this deal, let's double our money any way possible, as long as it's legal, versus let's try to be environmental friendly, let's try to be doing this and that. You ask, why did you get into syndication? It's important. Of course, this is almost like those interviews of tell me 3 weaknesses about yourself. You know, people are going to paint it nicely, but between all of that, you should be able to find some substance, right, of their main why. Everybody has a why, you know. So, and what's the ultimate goal with syndications? We have a partner, right, who is an orthopedic surgeon also, and his own goal is to do this syndication until he has enough money to be able to go to Nigeria and start orthopedic company and clinics and hospital in Nigeria, enough for many states in Nigeria, right? That's a very specific and direct goal. So this person is not trying to do syndications forever till death, right? Whereas, so you want to get their goals, and then does it align with with your goals? And do you feel like that is enough to propel them to work hard, right, in this syndication to make it a success?
Yeah, I totally agree. And in addition to working hard, they're working with integrity. I think this, I love when I get to this part of the questioning, because I really not only hear what they say, but how they say it. If it's just to turn a quick profit, syndication is a team game, and you're bringing on limited partners, and you're literally responsible for the capital that they've trusted you with. So I really want to dig in and ask many layers of whys. Like, what's the real reason? If it's something superficial, like I just want a yacht, I just want to go on vacation. If it's something more personal and selfish, I'm not aligned with that. Like, you're literally taking hundreds of people's capital and they're trusting you. There has to be, and this is for me, this may not be for everybody, but there has to be some deeper reasons why you're doing this, because that tells me something about their integrity, their competence, their grit. So I think it's important questions. You want to make sure you're aligned with that. It also can dictate how the deal is structured. So this can get very technical too. Some people want long-term holds because they're looking to build legacy wealth and not just transactionally get in and out of deals after 2 to 5 years. Some people want longer term holds. And if some people want shorter term holds, and if that's not clear, if your operator is functioning more for short-term goals, you need to know that, right? If an operator wants to hold longer, you need to know that as well. And if you want short-term transactions in and out, get your money, double it, go do another deal, that's important too. So it's actually technical as well. You need to make sure those are aligned. How do you feel about giving references? I always ask this for 2 reasons. And this kind of goes back to the question that Natasha asked, but I want to obviously check in references, but obviously they're going to give me some biased reference. They're going to give me their top cream of the crop, right? So I'm going to go and do my own due diligence anyway. I'm going to go tap into my networks. I'm going to go on Facebook groups, LinkedIn, and talk to different LPs and find out who's invested with this operator before and what that experience is like. So I'm going to make sure I get an unbiased opinion, but I actually also like to see how the lead operator reacts to the question. Get defensive? Do they get holding it close to the chest and not really forthright? I would love to see the operator say, absolutely, I have X amount of different LPs that have invested with me for 10 plus years. I can give you their number. I can give you their email right now. I can make an introduction. That kind of openness, that reaction says a lot more than actually who they refer me to, because I know it's going to be biased anyway. So look at how they react, if they're defensive, if they withhold, or if they're forthright.
Yep, absolutely. And going on with that is just you have to ask about a project that doesn't go according to plan. So everybody, if they're good operator, they should at least have one to talk about, but it also lets you know how they react. So, and also Some people might tell you, if you've been doing syndication for 10 years and you tell me, oh, all of our deals have gone according to plan. Absolutely, that's a lie. So you want to get an idea, how did they deal with it, the problem, right? And sometimes it will be outright total failure. And then they will say, this is what we've learned from it. George had an experience with one of that, right? In which he actually, did you say you're going to invest with them still?
Yeah. Yeah. I had experience with an operator who did a great job on my first investment with them. They returned 36% annual return over 4 years. Amazing. And there was a cash out refinance in the middle of that. So 100% knocked it out the park. Very next deal got hit with the interest rate hikes and really struggled and was only able to return back 35% of original capital invested by investors. But why am I going to why would I invest with them again? Because their communication through both deals, the good and the bad, was always upfront. It was clear. I understood why a deal did good and why a deal did bad. And so that was clear to me. I was able to get that operator on the phone quickly and responded to my text right away. This operator now has gone through a down cycle and they've learned from it. They were able to articulate to me what they would have done differently. And so I know that they're actually better prepared for any other struggles that they may go through. So it doesn't necessarily rule them out that they've gone through something bad. I just want to know how they handle it. And now in this instance, I have first experience about how they handled a major setback. So that's why I say I would invest with them again if the opportunity came.
Yeah, and then I know you sent me the answer, was very well thought out.
Yep.
You literally
Yep.
said, this is what we'll have done better. And they write a whole essay about it. So
Right.
I love that. And also, skin in the game. So you want to ask them, are they bringing any money into the deal? If so, how many percent? And is every member of the team investing or at least risking something? And this is so important to me. In fact, we've passed off deals that we want to do, but we don't have the capital at the time, right? They're like
Right.
phenomenal deal. We can bring it to investors, but I don't have money at that time. I, spend it all on my, starting my clinic. And I'm like, I cannot say I've put money into these deals, so I'm passing. So you want to make sure that they at least have a skin in the game. So that's very important. And
I want to mention even in depth, because the GP can put money into the deal in two different ways. They can put it on like the GP side where they're getting all these structures set up. Like somebody's got to pay for the legal, somebody's got to pay for the underwriting, the due diligence, the earnest money. That's money that the GP is putting all up front. And it's a lot of money, don't get me wrong. But I still need to see that GP put money on the LP side as well. They need to invest alongside the LPs in the deal. That means if the LPs lose, they will also stand to lose some money as well. So specifically ask about that. Maybe we'll restructure this question to really make it more specific, but are you putting GP money as well as LP money? How much? Make sure that their initial upfront fees don't wipe out the amount that they put in anyway, because they can play that game as well. They can take so much of an acquisition fee, which is a percentage of the total amount of the deal, right up front, right out the gate, which negates the amount that they put in an LP position. This is really a wash. It's almost like a sleight of hand. You have to be careful about this. As specifically, I've seen on webinars where LPs being pitched the deal are asking, does your acquisition fee negate your LP position? Are you putting an LP position, and does the acquisition fee kind of negate that? So they really have to have true skin in the game on the LP side.
Yeah. I, as an operator, also do that, not just also as a matter of basic, it's a joint thing. And also, I also feel good in such a way that, let's say the deal doesn't go well, like George says, them knowing that I also put money into it. There's a deal I put $450,000 into the deal, right?
On the LP side.
On the LP side. So obviously, there's no way this deal is going to die. There's no way. So that's a positive in some way. Of course, you're not going to always have that amount of money because that's another problem we run into. Man, we don't have unlimited funds. Then how do you keep putting money into every single deal? But at least as a team also, sometimes even if not every one of them, but at least they'll be like, okay, 10% of the deal is taken care of by the team. Sometimes it's in percentage. So it's something that we cannot get past. It's a must for us. And the last one, this is just
we kind of touched. Yeah, we touched on it.
Yeah. So what will I find if I run your background check? That's simple. Just it's almost when your wife already knows you're doing something wrong and has the receipt, but still asking you the question. So you better just be forthright in the straight up. Same thing with medical too. We always try to use medical examples, right? If you make a mistake, it's better you tell the patient's families the truth straight up. You're less likely to get sued and you're less likely to have, adverse effect. And even if you do, it's just only so yeah, just say the truth. Tell you had a DUI when you were young or something, and that's okay. But lying that no, pretty clean, and then you find a bunch of things. So that would automatically disqualify. That's about it.
And then lastly, we like to give our students an exercise, just a practical thing to do is go out there and try to use some of these questions to analyze GPs. You don't even necessarily have to invest with them. Just get in the habit of asking these questions, get your flow of and your delivery method of asking these questions. Figure out if you need to write them down and have them in front of you, or if you can practice and get so familiar with them that they just come out more naturally. So we give them an assignment and we say, go on your own, book an appointment with an operator and go through some of these questions, document your answers, and you can always bring it back to us for discussion points. Let us know how it went. We're open to talk and just work with you guys and grow. That's like a practical exercise we give to our students who were in our coaching pilot program. And it was good. It was good feedback. It was one of the better exercises that they enjoyed doing.
Yeah, there's nothing to lose except for 30 minutes of your time. All those one-on-ones, don't waste it. Just talking about, talking about yourself and talking about the operator. It's good to hear the story, research them already, and just get straight to business. I tend to just ask the question straight up. Judge likes to be it's more diplomatic. But either way, just get your questions answered.
Yep.
Okay.
Speaking of questions, any questions? You can come off mute or you can leave them on the chat. We talked about a lot of things tonight, and that's just the GP team. We did not talk about the market. You got to ask certain questions. I'm going to send this all on an email. We didn't talk about the debt structure or the deal or the underwriting, but those all deserve its own set of questions as well. So it's a lot. We call it LP and passive investing, but there's work up front to be done, and then it's passive. So Bio likes to call it semi-passive investing.
Yeah, there's no truly. I give up maybe stocks. Even for the stock, you have to research in the beginning.
You got to research.
Then you see the price go up, then you watch the due diligence. Like I have Tesla, and sometimes it's a stock which Tesla stock should be so easy, just leave it. But oftentimes I hear news of Elon Musk doing something crazy. Then I'm like, oh, I'm worried about the investment. So it's never going to be truly passive. You're going to have to research, look at what it is, what are those things that could affect your investment, your macroeconomics. You're having a presidential election. Is that going to swing things from oil and gas to oil and gas more if the Republican wins? Or is it going to switch away from that? Those are all the things that we're all constantly thinking and to think about when you're doing your due diligence.
Yep.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid to do the work. Any questions, guys? If not, then we're at 7:02. I see Shamim coming on camera. Hey, Shamim. Any questions? All right. So we're going to wrap up. Oh, see Ezra coming on camera. You guys are faking me out when you come on camera. So
I know, right?
Should be a requirement.
if anyone has a question. Yeah, exactly. Yep. Thank you, guys. And we will be back on in another 2 weeks with another webinar. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us. We're here to help, and we're happy to just share and educate through our experience. Thank you, guys. Everyone have a great night, and we'll see you in 2 weeks.
Okay. Take care, guys.
Guys,
Bye.
bye.